"You're joking, right, Pop?" The voice, sharp with the arrogance of youth, cut through the dry desert air. Sergeant Miller, a Marine barely old enough to have a mortgage, smirked at his squad mates. They stood in a loose semicircle on the blistering concrete of the 1,000-yard rifle range, their digital camouflage and state-of-the-art rifles a stark contrast to the man they were watching. Bruce Warren, 83 years old, said nothing. He simply knelt, his movements slow but deliberate, his faded blue jeans and worn red leather jacket looking ancient under the California sun. He ran a hand over the polished wood stock of his rifle, a relic from another era. Its steel was blued, not coated in tactical flat earth, and it wore the honest dings and scratches of a long, hard life. "Sir, with all due respect," Miller continued, stepping forward, his voice dripping with condescension, "this is a live-fire exercise for active-duty personnel. The Reaper's Gauntlet isn't a tourist attraction, and that thing," he gestured to Bruce's rifle, "belongs in a museum, not on my range." Bruce looked up. His eyes, pale blue and webbed with fine lines, were as calm and deep as a winter lake. They held no anger, no defensiveness. They simply observed, taking in the scene with a placid stillness that seemed to unnerve the young Marines more than any angry retort could have. "I was invited," Bruce said, his voice a low, gravelly hum, weathered by time but steady as a rock. The invitation had come from a general back east, a man Bruce had mentored decades ago, as a favor. Bruce was in town visiting his granddaughter, and had simply wanted to smell gunpowder and feel the familiar comfort of a rifle stock against his shoulder one more time. The general had arranged for him to have access to the range for a quiet afternoon of shooting, but a scheduling mix-up had placed him squarely in the path of Sergeant Miller's reconnaissance platoon during their most grueling qualification day. Miller scoffed, a disbelieving laugh escaping his lips. "Invited to do what? Watch. We're about to run the gauntlet. 5 targets, 800 to 1,200 yards, multiple positions, 90 seconds. No one has cleaned it in 3 years. You'd be lucky to even get on paper with that wooden canoe paddle." A ripple of laughter went through the younger Marines. They were lions in their prime, all muscle, swagger, and cutting-edge equipment. Their rifles were masterpieces of modern engineering, adorned with scopes that cost more than a used car, ballistic computers and carbon fiber bipods. They looked at Bruce and his old M1A rifle, a civilian model of the M14 he'd carried in another lifetime, and saw a fossil, an amusing, harmless old man playing soldier. "I'd like to try," Bruce said, the 3 words falling into the space between their laughter with the weight of granite. The laughter died. Miller's smirk tightened into a scowl of genuine annoyance. The joke was over. This old man was serious. He was holding up their training, wasting their time with some senile fantasy. "Look, Grandpa," Miller said, dropping any pretense of respect. "I don't have time for this. We have a schedule to keep. Pack up your antique and go find the VFW hall. They've probably got bingo starting soon." Another Marine, a corporal with a fresh haircut, chimed in. "Maybe he wants to show us how they did it in the black and white days, Sarge." The taunts washed over Bruce, leaving him unmoved. He continued his setup, his actions a slow, practiced ballet. He pulled a worn leather shooting glove onto his left hand. He laid out a simple canvas mat, not the high-tech padded ones the platoon used. From a pouch on his belt, he produced not a laser rangefinder, but a small dog-eared notebook and a pencil. He checked the wind, not by looking at a digital anemometer, but by watching the shimmer of the heat haze over the distant targets and letting a pinch of dust sift through his fingers. The Marines watched, their amusement turning to a kind of fascinated pity. It was like watching a blacksmith try to compete with a 3D printer. The whole process was achingly slow, analog, ancient. "What's he even doing?" one of the younger men whispered. "I think he's doing math," another replied, stifling a laugh. Miller, his patience exhausted, stepped closer. His shadow fell over Bruce. "All right, that's it. I'm the range safety officer for this detail, and I'm calling this. It's a safety hazard. You're not qualified. Your weapon is not approved. Your time is up." Bruce paused in his calculations and looked up at the sergeant. For the first time, a flicker of something other than placid calm entered his eyes. It was a deep, profound weariness, the look of a man who had seen generations of young, arrogant men just like this one. "Son," Bruce said, his voice still quiet but now carrying an edge of cold steel. "I was qualifying on rifles like this before your father was born. I'm cleared to be here. Now are you going to let me shoot, or do I have to make a phone call?" The direct challenge hung in the air. Miller's face flushed red. He was being called out by a civilian, an old man in front of his men. His authority was being questioned. It was an intolerable breach of the hierarchy that defined his entire world. He was about to unleash a tirade, to physically escort the old man from the firing line, when a new voice cut in. "Let him shoot, Sergeant." Everyone turned. Standing by the range tower was Gunnery Sergeant Davis, the permanent range master. Davis was a lifer, a man whose face was a roadmap of deployments and hard sun. He'd seen thousands of Marines come and go. He'd been watching the entire exchange with a stony expression. Miller snapped to a semblance of attention. "Gunny, he's not qualified, and his gear is—" "I'll sign for him," Davis said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "The range is cold. Give him 192nd run. Then you can have your range back. Consider it a history lesson." Miller's jaw worked, but he knew better than to argue with Gunny Davis. He shot a venomous glare at Bruce. "Fine. 1 run. Let's see what you've got, old-timer. The clock starts when you're ready." Bruce gave a single slow nod to Davis. He didn't look at Miller again. He turned his attention back to his rifle. He lay down on the mat, the canvas crinkling under his weight. As he settled the rifle into the pocket of his shoulder, his thumb brushed against a deep, crescent-shaped gouge in the walnut stock, just below the receiver. The blistering heat of the California range faded, replaced by the damp, suffocating heat of a jungle. The air was thick with the smell of mud, rot, and fear. Rain ticked down on broad green leaves. He was 20 years old again, huddled in a muddy foxhole. Next to him, a man whose face was already old at 30, Master Sergeant O'Connell tapped the stock of Bruce's new M14. "Forget all the numbers they taught you in school," O'Connell had whispered, his voice barely audible over the drumming rain. "This piece of wood and steel is a part of you. It breathes when you breathe. You don't aim it, you will it to the target. Feel the wind on your face, in the trees. Listen to it, it'll tell you everything you need to know." A nearby explosion had sent a spray of shrapnel through the air, and a piece had spun past, carving that crescent-shaped scar into his stock. O'Connell had just grinned. "See? Now she's got a story to tell." The memory vanished as quickly as it came. Bruce blinked, the distant targets coming back into focus. He took a slow, deep breath, held it, and let half of it out. The world narrowed to the reticle in his scope, and the shimmering mirage dancing around the first steel plate 800 yards away. From the observation tower, Gunnery Sergeant Davis watched Bruce settle into position. He'd seen that look before, but not for a very long time. It was a kind of focus so absolute it was almost a trance. He'd seen it in the eyes of the best snipers, the men who could make impossible shots under unimaginable pressure. He looked at the old Men 1A, at the way the old man held it, not like a tool but like an extension of his own body. He looked at the sneering faces of the young recon Marines, so confident in their technology and their youth. And he felt a familiar rising anger at their disrespect, followed by a certainty that they were all about to learn something. This wasn't just about some old vet wanting to shoot. Davis had a feeling he was about to witness something far more significant. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He didn't call the officer of the day. He scrolled through his contacts to a number he rarely used. He thumbed the call button and lifted the phone to his ear, his eyes never leaving the old man on the firing line. "Sir, this is Gunnery Sergeant Davis at the long-distance range," he said when the call was answered. "I apologize for calling you directly, but I think you need to get down here, immediately." There was a pause on the other end. "What is it, Gunny?" "There's a civilian on the line. He's about to run the Reaper's gauntlet." "And?" the voice on the other end asked, clearly impatient. Davis took a breath. "Sir, his name is Bruce Warren, and he's shooting a Woodstock M1A." The silence on the other end of the line was suddenly heavy, absolute. Davis knew the name had landed like a thunderclap. He continued, his voice low and urgent. "A squad of recon kids are mocking him, sir. They called him Pop. I think you and the master guns from the sniper school might want to be here to see this, for the sake of their education." The line was quiet for another second. Then the voice came back, stripped of all impatience and filled with a stark, stunning urgency. "Keep that range cold. We are on our way. Do not let that man leave." In the office of the base commander, Colonel Matthews stared at the phone in his hand as if it had just electrocuted him. He had hung up on Gunny Davis without another word. Bruce Warren, the name echoed in his mind, a name spoken only in hushed, reverent tones in the hallways of the command building and in the history seminars at Quantico. It was a name synonymous with legend. "Jessica," he barked at his aide. A young captain appeared in the doorway. "Sir, get my vehicle. Now," Matthews commanded, already grabbing his cover from its stand. "And get Master Gunnery Sergeant Thorne on the radio. Tell him to meet me at range 4 on the double. Tell him it's a code white." The captain's eyes widened. Code white wasn't a real military code. It was a private term the colonel and Thorne used. It meant a ghost had appeared, A living legend from the Corps' past was on the base. It had only been used once before, when a Medal of Honor recipient from the Korean War had shown up unannounced at the main gate. Matthews was already at his computer terminal, his fingers flying